The year is 2001. WWF has managed to survive the Monday Night Wars. Meanwhile, WCW has officially closed its doors, with WCW at death's door, or ECW there to let them in. WWF stands alone on being the last of the big three to be atop the mountain. WWF did it. They beat their competition. They beat WCW, something that they've reminded us about for I don't know about how once or twice a year ever since then. But nevertheless, as now WWF finds himself with a new sort of problem. You see, WWF managed to buy their competition, WCW, and also bought out ECW as well. Oh, and in the case, being able to help out out, Paul Heyman and his legal debts when it comes to ECW. Who so WWF now how has both WCW and ECW, and indeed the fate of both is in Vince McMahon's hands, as he famously said when he appeared on WCW programming on the final episode of Nitro. I still think back at now granted I was not even a year old when this happened, so I have no memory of this. I didn't watch at the time because I was still an infant, but it had to be pretty surreal to see a Vince McMahon, someone who had been competing with WCW for so long, finally appearing on the programming, essentially to do his victory lap. But the victory lap was only just beginning. And I imagine had Eric Bischoff had things gone the same way they were going in like 1996 or 7 and stuff, and Eric Bischoff was the one to appear on WF programming, having bought out the WF, I imagine it probably still would have been equally as shocking. But nevertheless, as he who laughs last truly laughs best, as I get in the words of Vince McMahon, I suppose. And so, WWF had bought out WCW and ECW, who actually at this time the ECW stuff was still kind of pending, so that was going on in the background. But I say that to say, now WWF found themselves with a problem. Now what? What do you do now? I imagine it probably felt like Wile Coyote finally catching the Roadrunner. Okay, I've caught them. I beat my competition. What now? Oh, and ladies and gentlemen, it's time we talk about perhaps one of the most infamous, in a way, one of the most all over the place, one of perhaps the most tone deaf, in a lot of regards, heard storylines in WWF history. The invasion. And yes, last year I talked about the Monday Night Wars. This year I'm talking about the invasion. So, how we're going to do this, ironically enough, is similar to what we did last year. So, what I have is the ratings. And now, obviously, there's no other companies to talk about the ratings for. So, what we've done is I've arranged them from the weeks, based on the months. So, you'll see that in just a moment. And it actually looks like I forgot one. And for the ones I have here right now. So great, already off to a great start. Um, but nevertheless, we have the ratings, and we have some notable storylines that were happening within the confines of the invasion and WF at the time. So we're going to go through those and kind of walk through the history of the invasion. And is it truly a bad, very misguided storyline? Or is it a hidden gem that has been misunderstood, at all this time. Let's find out. And also, as an extra treat, I'm going to be watching every single pay per view from within the timeline of the invasion. That's right, you heard me. Yeah, I'm going to be watching hitting, every single pay per view, that being King of the Ring, Invasion, and SummerSlam, Survivor Series. Now I'm gonna watch all of Survivor Series 2001, and I decided, you know what, I'll throw in Vengeance in there as well. I'll kind of cap things off, but yes, I've thrown hone in Vengeance as well. So we're going to look at every single pay per view from around this time and talk about what's happening in WCW at this time. Or not WCW, WWE or slash WF, but they'll try to convince you that it's WCW. But we'll get to that when we get to that. But now, on to the ratings. Okay, so, as you can see, we have our ratings here. So, we're only doing the months of May and June for this. So, obviously, as I kind of mentioned, we're taking it week by week. So or a couple months at a time. So, we're starting off in May because that's when the Invasion storyline really kicks off. They started so late, obviously, because of WrestleMania 17. So, as you can see, here we have 4.55 for Raw, and then 3.7 for SmackDown. So this is for the whole week. So it starts off with Raw on that Monday, and then ends off with SmackDown on that Friday. So we have Raw at 4.55 and SmackDown at 3.7. We have the next week, the 13th through the 17th, we have Raw at a 4.5 and SmackDown at a 4. For the week of the 20th through the 24th, we have a 4.2 for Raw and then a 3.9 for SmackDown. The week of the 27th to the 31st, though, Raw and SmackDown do the same in terms of ratings. They both scored a 4.2. And then the week of June 3rd through the 7th, Raw does a 4.3 and SmackDown does a 3.9. In June 10th through the 14th, Raw does a 4.1, SmackDown does a 3.2. The week of the 17th through the 21st, Raw does a 4.2 and SmackDown does a 3.6. And finally, to end off June, in the last week of June, Raw does a 4.65 and then SmackDown does a 3.7. So, as I'm noticing, because they have a full list of it, you can check it out here. I think I just had the let me see. Eh, Raw ratings history. Is this it? It, Let me go to my history. Don't worry, I got nothing to hide in terms of my history. But as you can see, yeah, things were up significantly while Raw was still in the Monday Night Wars. Or so you see Raw doing fives and stuff like that. And earlier on in the year, and this one actually shows all five. So it shows Raw, Nitro, Heat, Thunder, and SmackDown. Admittedly, I omitted these numbers from my own chart, like the numbers next to these other numbers, because admittedly these numbers I am not sure what they mean. So I'm not going to pretend that I do. But if someone can fill me in the comments, please do. I would love to know. Uh, but as you can see, things a bit down, and oh wow, that's falling. Great. Let me try refreshing. Hey, okay. Do I have the okay on? Uh, okay. So something's going on with my browser. So I'll have to figure that out. But as you can see, oh, okay, there it is. Just didn't load. But as you can see, things down a little bit from when they were in the Monday Night Wars. So things down to the fours, and they don't go back up to the fives for these 2 months. Now we'll see how the ratings change in the coming months of the invasion. But for now, things not horrible, but not as high as they were. A lot of people attribute that to now that WF was the last one standing and WCW, ECW were no longer in the picture. Now kind of only one singular show to watch. But it's but that's kind of been the accepted answer. But I imagine it's also for a number of reasons, and a number of other reasons as well. I'm sure many factors go into viewership and stuff like that. But that's kind of where we are for the time being. All right, so now that the ratings are out of the way, let's see some of the notable stuff happening in WWE. around this time. WF, I should say, around this time. The first one I kind of alluded to at the beginning, that being Shane McMahon now owns WCW, and in terms of the alliance, Shane McMahon is going to be in charge of the WCW brand, and pretty much stealing it from under the nose of his old man, back at the final episode of Nitro. Also a part of the storyline heading into WrestleMania 17 when they fought. So Shane is going to be the main McMahon in charge of WCW. Who get used to hearing McMahon in charge of one of these entities within and within the defector, or not quite defectors, but the invaders, as I meant to say, hey, or as they will come to be known later on. We're not quite there yet, as they'll become to be known later on, the Alliance, but we're not quite there yet. For now, WCW is the only ones really here. ECW has not entered the chat as of yet, but they are on their way. Next up, we have some WCW invaders already. We see one of the notable ones being Lance Storm, who was really like the first major invader from WCW. Even though Lance Storm is also known for his time in ECW, but mainly from WCW, who is Lance Storm coming in, and so we already see some invaders when it comes to WCW, who including someone who makes his debut, DDP, and they immediately he almost kind of kill the gimmick like a little bit of DDP by making him a stalker. So, for the weeks leading up to the reveal, someone had been stalking the Undertaker's wife, Sarah, and eventually the masked man comes out and reveals who it is, and it's DDP, Diamond Dallas Page, the man who was the people's champion in WCW, is now a creepy stalker after the Undertaker's wife, Sarah. At least that was his wife at the time, and DDP, he would go on to have kind of a obsession with Sarah over the coming weeks and months. And at first, it was to gain a tactical edge slash advantage over the Undertaker. And DDP's logic was kind of prison logic, go after the big dog in the yard. But eventually, DDP, he became actually obsessed with the Undertaker's wife. Sarah, even despite having a whole Kimberly at home. But yeah, so DDP, he then kind of loses the plot a little bit, and becomes very much obsessed with the Undertaker. I will probably get into it more as the storyline unfolds, as the invasion storyline unfolds. Undertaker proceeds to beat the crap out of DDP almost every chance he gets. It's thanks for coming to WWE, kid. But the next major thing is WCW start taking over Raw. So they wouldn't go full force with it until a little bit later on. So we're not quite there yet. But WCW, its invaders, would slowly start to kind of take over Raw as their main base. WF mainly held on to SmackDown as their main grounds. Kind of a primordial version of the brand split that they would end up doing the following year. But yeah, so WCW kind of setting up Raw as their setting up Raw as their show, and like I said, as we'll see in the coming weeks and months, they try to really go all in with it. Spoiler alert: it does not end up well, but we'll get to that when we get to that. Next up, though, we have Booker T showing up and attacking Stone Cold. This was a major or this was something pretty much major, a major force coming in for WCW, at least on paper when it comes to Booker T. Now around SummerSlam, maybe not as much so, but we'll get to there when we get to there. But Booker T showing up, attacking Stone Cold, was a pretty big deal. Booker T, very big name in WCW, last WCW World Champion, and so him coming in, going after the top guy in the WWF, Steve Austin, and it it probably the first real sign that, oh, okay, maybe this is going somewhere. A major name in WCW is now in the WWE. Yeah, and hopefully he'll do big stuff, which he kind of does. Most of it happens after the Alliance storyline, uh, uh, but he kind of does as well. Um, but yeah, so Booker T showing up, attacking Austin at King of the Ring, and was pretty major, at least for WCW, at least on paper. But the final thing that we have is that Mike Awesome does become the Hardcore Champion. I believe he's the first of the WCW Invaders to win WWE Championship Gold, and poor Mike Awesome. Unfortunately, a lot of credibility and stuff. Damage because of, ironically enough, WCW, what they did with him with like the Fat Chick Thriller and that 70s guy. It feels like Mike Awesome sadly never really fully recovered from it. I could be wrong, but it kind of seems that way, kind of outside looking in, at least for me. But yeah, so Mike Awesome is here. He does win championship gold. Mike Awesome does not last long in WWF. He eventually leaves, saying he didn't like the experience, and he would wind up coming back for one night only for ECW One Night Stand 2005 when he took on Masato Tanaka, which is a event I have reviewed before. I reviewed it a couple years ago. I reviewed both One Night Stand 2005 and 2006. So if you haven't already, go check out those reviews. But yeah, so Mike Awesome is hardcore champion. On paper, things seem to be off to a good start. You know, we have some WCW invaders. One of them already has W Championship gold. Well, what could possibly go wrong? But we'll get to that later on in the next episode. But as for this episode, that is going to do it for this one. And thank you all so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed. If you did, please do me a favor: like, comment, subscribe, share with your friends, turn on those post notifications so you know every time I upload a video, so you never miss an upload. And let me know in the comment section below what are your thoughts on the invasion storyline thus far, or even as a whole. Do you think it's one of the weakest W storylines of all time? Let me know. Obviously we'll progress further through that, and I'll give my full opinion when it's all said and done. But for the meantime, not bad start. Hoping that they can keep their momentum, and admittedly, that's a pretty big hope. But thank you all so much for watching, and I will see you guys later. Peace.